I have the production techniques session that when you download the assignment, it's mainly comprised of a logic session. And so we're going to take a moment here and talk about a couple of the different techniques that are presented in your production technique assignment, kind of go through different steps of how you will approach this project. And then we'll briefly talk about the game capture that you will be doing also once you have completed all of the music for the game and tested it out. So when you open this logic session, it comes with, well, where'd that go? It comes with some notes on the overall project itself, and this is really a summary of the PDF that is included with the rest of the materials. But it really outlines the three different parts of this assignment. You have three different folder tracks. And in these folder tracks, if you're not familiar with folder tracks in Logic, they were kind of before track stacks, but they allowed you to put an entire section of a Logic session in a particular folder. So if I double click this, what looks like a regular region on this part 1 track, double click, it brings me to what looks like a completely different session, but it's a couple of tracks and regions set up within a folder track inside of Logic. So I can hit this up arrow to always go backwards and go out of that. If I double clicked into part 2, I could go into this section. Let's make this a little bit more viewable. Let's see here. There's all this stuff here. And again, I can hit this up arrow to go backwards. I can go to part 3, and well, I guess I'm just adjusting all of my tracks. And always hit this up arrow to go into any one of the parts and go backwards to the main session. So that's how you quickly navigate around this session and go from the different parts, part 1, 2, and 3. We'll start here in part 1. Where there is a WAV file provided, and you are going to do a basic audio loop, which is known as topping and tailing the audio loop, finding the top or the beginning of the file and cutting it off and editing it there, going to the end of the 4 or 8 bar loop that you find, editing it there on the last downbeat, tailing it, and then making sure that it's set up to loop. So this is basic looping. This is when you would be provided a previously composed piece of music, a source piece of music from someplace, and you wanted to make it loop so that you can make it a bit more interactive and have it progress in a particular direction or order that you want. So easy to set up these audio loops. And to make this, hopefully you have edited some files and cut an audio loop out at some point in your audio production career. But if not, here's an opportunity to make sure that you get everything set up correctly. So here is our WAV file. Let's make sure we can hear this and it's working just fine. All right, is that broadcasting? You can hear the music, you can hear me also. I think it looks like it's good on my side. All right, excellent. All right, so the music is very rhythmic, very much loop-based, so you find easy points at the beginning and the end of a file where it would loop nicely. So all you're going to do, they're also kind of marked with cymbal crashes. You can find a cymbal crash and find the downbeat or the beginning of your loop. Well, let's not go back that far. And eventually you are going to edit a low, medium, and high intensity version of these loops. So if you listen to the music, there's a really obvious 1, 2, and 3 sections here. If we listen in the first versus somewhere in the second, there's more intensity, there's more instrumentation. All the way up into this third section. So you want to make sure that you cut 3 separate loops out of here. Almost sounds like some Daft Punk, absolutely. It's got a good, nice groove to it overall. You can find cymbal crash. Those are pretty good downbeats to use. And all you are going to do is zoom way, way into the beginning of the cymbal crash. Let me do this again. All right, so there's our cymbal crash. And we want to zoom all the way at the beginning, right at the beginning of our waveform, and find a 0 crossing point where it's at the beginning and it's not above or below the middle line here. We want to go ahead and split this and separate this into 2 parts, and then we're going to zoom all the way out and hit play again. Oh, well, actually, this might not be a really good place. Let's see. Oh, no, we got time. It's glitching out on me. What's going on here? All right, find another. There's another cymbal crash. Cymbal crash will be the beginning of the next loop, so it will be the end of our current loop. So we go find that cymbal crash again, and then just zoom way, way into it. Find the downbeat, find a 0 crossing point, get it as close as possible there, and split it. And all we have to do is listen to it at this point. Another thing that's going to help you really quickly is if you right-click up in the marquee up at the top here with your your timeline with all the numbers, there is an option that says Auto Set Locators. And with this turned on, you'll notice that my yellow bar up here follows the size of whatever region that I've clicked. Like now that I've edited it in 8-bar, 4-bar loop, I didn't count. Now that I've edited a loop, I have it marked at the beginning and the end. What's going on here? Hold on, I think. Add some other, turn some other things off here. I turned too many things off. Turned off my microphone. What else can I turn off? That should be good for now. Question here in the chat. Overloads, are you running audio through the Mac? Yeah, I'm using Soundflower. And it might just be a version that's not cooperating with me. So, let's see if that... I had some other programs open. So we'll see if that operates any better. So, let me do that again. With Auto Set Locators, let's turn it off. Notice as I click around, the yellow bar doesn't move. As I right-click and turn Auto Set Locators on, it moves around, works a little bit better overall. So I listen to this. Oops, oh, there it goes. So we have a seamless loop there. And you know what? The real smart idea here, I skipped a very important step, is I'm actually going to drag this down and hold Option and make a copy of this so that I don't ever mess up the original file. In case I completely screwed something up, I can go back to it. And I'll just do that again real quick. Find. There it is. Cymbal crash. Let's see here. Where did I go? No, I'm throwing Pro Tools commands at it. Hit S to split. Zoom way, way back out. Listen to cymbal crash. Let me try something else here. Hold on. Buffer size. Check. All right, let's see if that works any better. Find the next cymbal crash here. There it is. Zoom in here. Find the 0 crossing point. Split it. And zoom back out. And check this and listen to it. Cool. And I have a seamless loop. And eventually you would go through here and split out another loop. Go over here, you'd split another loop there, and then go back and delete. Right, so you'd eventually have 3 loops. They would all be seamless on the downbeat, and you would use and just eventually bounce them out and name them properly. You will also download extra extra audio files from the Westar Music Library. There's information in the PDF on accessing some music tracks there, so you have some other music that you can choose and create your own loops from. So that is just very basic looping, topping and tailing of an audio file and editing it. I'm going to back out of there and go to part 2 here. Here I'm going to double click into part 2, and I'm going to zoom out so we can see what's going on here. All right, we have 2 pieces of music. These are MIDI regions, right? Currently it's in MIDI. We want to bounce it out as an audio file. We have 2 pieces of music. This is a more electronic piece of music, and this is a more orchestral piece of music. And we are going to bounce this to an audio file and make sure that that audio file loops seamlessly and loops just fine. So let's listen to this. Let's see what we got. So drums, bass line, that's bass line, lead line, harmony, melody. We want to bounce this out. If you were to bounce this normally, what's going on there? If you wanted to bounce this normally, you would just bounce this to an audio track. So I'll just delete this audio track, create a new track. No, create a new track. No, create a new track. There we go. And it's going to be a software track. No, it's going to be an audio track. Create that. And we are going to bounce this. So we have it highlighted to the boundaries that we want. And we hit Apple B to bounce. This is a regular old bounce, 16-bit 44.1 stereo files. And we do not want to include the audio tail because we want it to be the exact boundaries of the loop. It is PCM file, start and end is correct. We can bounce it offline, and we hit OK. And we're going to bounce this. We are going to call this electronic. Whatever, we're going to call this electronic. How many? 6? 7? There you go, 6. Okay, so we are going to pull this into our library. Let's see, no, not into library. We're going to pull this into our session. Come on. Browsers, there we go. All right, we're going to take electronic music file 6, which is blank. Why are you blank? Oh, because I have the file volume down a whole lot. Hold on just a sec. Let me do this. You go away. And, all right, I'm going to pull those up. And how do I do this without blasting? pull it down here. Okay. All right, yes, whatever, 7. We'll keep going. All right, back into browsers. Take electronic music 7. Oh goodness, let's not kill ourselves here. There we go, and we drag this in. Now if we listen to this file, turn off browsers, mute all of this, listen to this file. Alright, so it cuts off the end of this crash symbol. If we listen to the original one here, at the very end here there's a crash. So as it loops around, and if I stop it, you can hear there's a delay, there's reverb, there's all this extra stuff in here that helps it create a seamless loop that when I listen to the bounced file, or the bounce in place would do the exact same thing. Listen to the crash symbol at the end. Listen to it when it doesn't glitch. It gets cut off every single time in the bounce. Every single time it reaches the end of this file, it cuts off the audio. So we want to make sure we want to bounce out a seamless loop. So in order to do that, we're going to take the original MIDI files, and we're just going to duplicate, well, not the MIDI files, MIDI regions here, and duplicate them out to be twice as long. Then all we have to do is make sure our boundaries are set at the beginning and end. We can just bounce it again. And 16-bit 44.1, offline, no audio tail. We want to make sure it adds back to the project. And we will do... I have my fader down. Bounce. Yes. Go. Try 8 again. No? Fine. Go to 9. Alright. So now when I take this file and bring it in, I've bounced the file to be twice as long. And all I have to do to this to create a seamless loop is use the second half of it. You can hear there's a solid crash symbol that plays all the way through, but in the second time, it gets cut off. So all we're going to do is go directly here, right in the middle, which is 197, between 193 and 201. We're going to take this file and we're going to split it in half. We're going to delete the first half and use the second half. When you do this, you'll hear the cymbal crash. All of that, anything with a reverb tail, anything with a delay that goes across a boundary, anything that would get cut off, you can actually create a seamless loop by doubling out the length of the file and editing it and using the second half. So real quick, this is all that's happening. You take the original files, oops, let's not do that. Take the original files, you duplicate them, You set them up, the boundaries, to be twice as long, and then you bounce it out. When you bounce it out, you create the new file that is twice as long. Drag it into your session, and then all you have to do is chop it in half. Oops, that's not chopping in half. That's chopping in half. All right, that will give you, and you just bounce out that file. It's 8 bars long. It will give, or sorry, it's 4 bars long. It will give you the complete seamless loop. You'll also do that over here. There's an orchestral loop. When you stop it or pause it, it will have a whole bunch of reverb, instrument decay that gets cut off at the end of the file whenever it loops around. So use the same technique to create a seamless loop. And the third one here, when you go to part 3, there are 2 files here that sound really interesting, but they do not loop. They're kind of hard files or difficult files to make loop. This one's more of a drone. This one has a little bit more movement in it. But it might be an interesting texture or pad to create a loop from. And you could actually sit there for quite a while and maybe edit something down. Let's actually remember to make a copy of it. Mute the original one. So we could probably spend some time and try to make something loop here. Let's see. Right, it's there's a lot of pitch changes, timbre changes, volume changes in there, and so it would take quite a while to make something loop seamlessly just by trying to find the same beginning and end of each one of the cues. So in order to make this files like this loop pretty quickly and easily, all we're going to do is chop out a chunk of the file that's a little bit longer than the final version that we want. So we're going to use this part to actually loop. And in order to make this loop nicely, all I have to do is split it in half. Just don't even really have to pay attention to where the split is. I typically go for somewhere in the middle, but this works pretty much with whatever edit you make. Then you are going to take the left part, the one that you just split, just take the left section. You're going to drag it over towards the right, but not completely past. So you're going to leave a little bit of overlap between the two. And at this point, the outside edges are perfectly seamless because they were directly together before the edit. So now we just made the inside part of the edit the outside part of our loop. Now I'm going to select both of these files. I can hear the loop. Right, so at the point that it loops, it's just fine. It's perfectly seamless, but here in the middle, oops. That's pretty darn close. So I'm going to do to make this as invisible as possible. So I'm going to do a giant crossfade across the middle here. Make it even there. And now at the outside edges, everything's going to loop. Alright, so this works with any synths or pads or drones. All you have to do is chop out a section kind of larger than what you want. You're going to split that part in half and then flip the two sides. Flip the left side over the right, but leave a little bit of overlap, and then do a big crossfade across the middle. Maybe balance that out a little bit. And no matter where you make those edits, it always works because of how you are setting it up, right? So notice as I'm doing all of these edits, it's pretty blind. It doesn't matter. I'm not really paying attention. And of course, in a true situation, depending on what you needed, you could certainly take quite a bit of time to find the correct loop points. But it's just important to notice that this works seamlessly wherever you are. All right, so those are part 1, 2, and 3 of the production technique session, where you will be editing out the files, topping and tailing files for loops. You're going to be bouncing audio files by duplicating the length of the audio file or of the MIDI regions and bouncing it to audio, and then you will be doing editing of these final files to chop it in half and crossfade the middle to create a seamless loop.